If I could just get your attention. How's it going? Thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm Alex. I'm with the Stanford Blockchain Collective, and like I said, we're really happy to host this event tonight. I'm here with my colleagues, Ben, Anna, and Richard. And just very briefly before we get started, I know many of you have been to some of these events before, but just briefly about our club. So we're, a student-run organization focused on on blockchain technology and distributed ledger tech. And we come from all backgrounds. The club is expressly cross-disciplinary, so the idea being that broader is better in terms of the perspectives. And so, our membership kind of extends from business school, law school, engineering school. We got some people from the history department. We're pretty inclusive. So, if you'd like to get involved after this event, we'll send out an email. We'll have a Slack link or our Slack channel join link, and we'll include the link to our website as well. We'd love to have you participate in our community. We've got a lot of people there, and we do a fair number of these events, and hopefully we can see you in the future. So with that, I'm going to turn to introducing our guests and our speakers for tonight. So we have Jason from Truebit. He's the CEO and founder of Truebit. I'm not going to talk too much about Truebit because he's going to tell you all about it in a minute here, but just briefly, Jason has a background in mathematics. He earned his PhD from IU, has held numerous positions, and is prominently been at the National University of Singapore. He's done some postdoc or done research at University of Chicago in computer science specifically. Done 2 Fulbright scholarships, so it's fairly accomplished kind of in the world of mathematics and computer science, and is now running this company, which we're going to hear about. Dan, many of you know Professor Dan Boneh. He's our cryptographer in residence here at Stanford University, professor of cryptography, and has done. I don't have enough time to summarize his contributions both in theory and the application of cryptography and the science of cryptography. So we're fortunate enough to have them here. Kind of the format is going to be a fireside chat. It's going to be some brief kind of presentations by them, and then they're going to chat for a bit, and then we'll open it up for questions, and that'll be the night. So thank you all very much for coming, and please help me welcoming our guests.
So thanks. So these are I gave a very similar talk a few weeks ago at the Stanford Security Lunch. So that's why it says February 13th. Was it not on Valentine's Day?
It was on Tuesday.
I kind of remember saying something about Valentine's Day, but in any case, the protocol hasn't changed, so it should be fine. So I just want to give a little overview of what this project is about. Because it is a blockchain project, but we can also compare it to something which is also very familiar, the big data that you use every day, the Facebooks and the Googles, which provide you things with storage and computation and some sort of hierarchical privacy where you can control who sees what. And in the blockchain sort of the privacy have we've created that privacy enough for these property of immutability. The reason it's secure is because everyone can see the data there. But of course, when I say you see the data, you don't have much room to store much of anything on the blockchain. So the storage is really limited, and whether you're in Bitcoin or Ethereum. The other thing is you don't have much space to do computation. We have smart contracts, yes, they can do simple, they can check signatures, they can do some kinds of business logic, but the goal of this project, the Truebit protocol, is to take smart contracts which can run for more like a desktop computer and do scalable computation. And sort of a side effect of this, the way this protocol is set up, is that we are able to also grab data from off-chain, like and use it inside of the smart contracts and make this sort of secure without modifying the underlying consensus protocol. And it's a little slightly misleading to put the picture of Teutsch here with the classical Teutsch instruction, and sort of just check, use Truebit to check proof of work. But I'll talk about, hopefully we'll get into the discussion today, an application of how you really would use Truebit to grab data from another source after. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. There's scalability is like, there's new stuff popping up every day. There's lots of different ways. I don't have time to go into all the scalability, but I guess the main thing I would try to say is that Truebit is a scalability solution in the sense that we're happy to process like one really large transaction as opposed to processing many, many small ones. So this is kind of the goal of Truebit is to do. So we do this through a process which we call interactive verification, which I'll try to explain to you in the next 10 minutes how that works. And yeah, so you could also think of combining a bunch of small transactions together into one large transaction and then processing those. So in a way, you could use it to also scale the number of transactions. That's just like, I guess, one application. So let us look. First of all, what is the problem that we're going to solve? Okay, just to review what a smart contract. I just take a quote from Ethereum.org. They say Ethereum itself says that it's a decentralized platform that runs smart contracts. So these are applications that run exactly as programmed without any possibility of downtime, censorship, fraud, or third-party interference. So on Ethereum, you have users who they have tokens, which is Ether, and also they can put data that go into these smart contracts. So smart contracts process both money and data, as opposed to like more traditional machines which just process data. So the smart contract, on the other hand, is very much like a computer because it has its own code, which is immutably stored on the blockchain. It has its own like private storage. It's sort of like it can manage state, and the smart contract is processed through some sort of consensus in the blockchain. As we said before, this is only for small computations. So why is it only for small computations? So the first idea you might have is to just get rid of the gas limit. So the gas limit meter, so the Ethereum is metering smart contract storage and compute resources with gas. So it charges people for using the resources of the network. Generally, the storage is more expensive than the use compute because they want to. It's more valuable resource. So anyway, the gas limit is the maximum amount of gas you can use per lot. That's how much resources you can use. So why do we have the gas limit? So one thing you might say is that it's because every miner has to replicate every Ethereum computation. Another reason is that removing the gas limit would leave Ethereum vulnerable to denial. Service attacks. Another possible explanation is that the gas limit helps incentivize transaction verification. And the last reason is that the product doesn't want to share the scale. Well, I gave this talk already, so it's no longer a secret. So I wanted, both A and B are correct, but I want to sort of convince you that C is the more correct answer. I mean, you could also say there are other limitations like the bandwidth of the communication through the network, but that is, I think the verifiers per level, which I'm about to talk about, is a little more restrictive. So what happens if you don't have a gas limit in Ethereum? So you come in, you're a very ordinary guy who brings in a very heavy transaction into the network, incentivizes it properly so that the miners will pick up his transaction. So right, as the first miner who picks it up, he says, sure, he includes it because he gets a reward. Whereas, and the miner who includes it is blocked. Whereas the other miners are sort of, well, they don't actually know what to do. They're supposed to verify this transaction, but they really, in reality, they just get confused. So now, why do they get confused? So to restate the question, in case of a heavy transaction, what should a rational miner do? Okay, so there is some reason to skip the verification, right? Because if you skip the verification, then you can get ahead of the mining race, which is why you're there in the first place, to win block rewards and collect Ether. So you should skip the verification. But on the other hand, if you skip the verification, then you might end up mining on the wrong chain. In other words, everyone else did the verification and you didn't, so now your stuff is just going to get ignored. So then that means you should do the verification. So in a sense, rationality doesn't help. You just want to do what everybody else is doing. So it doesn't. There's more than one possible equilibrium in that thing. Okay, so Truebit is sort of a solution to this problem that sort of winds its way around the verifier's dilemma. So this is the idea is that anyone can offer a reward for performing a computational task. Anyone can solve a task in exchange for the reward. So as anyone can offer a reward, that includes a smart contract. And you can, say, I don't have enough gas to run my computer, I'm going to pitch it out to Truebit. So then the protocol is going to guarantee correctness of the solutions. And I guess I already got ahead of myself on the slide, but anyone can include smart contracts, or anyone can keep their address. So formally, the Truebit consists basically of two parts. One, which is, I say an Ethereum smart contract, is actually, of course, a collection of smart contracts. And you could write it as one, but it's probably not the best style. So you have a smart contract, and then you have some kind of new off-chain architecture, which I'm going to walk us through how that architecture works in the next few slides. So the purpose of the architecture is to allow us to do what we call unanimous. It's a form of unanimous consensus, as opposed to like Bitcoin, where you have it's kind of like majority vote. If most of the miners accept the transaction, then it's on the blockchain. And it stays there. Here, anyone can say, I don't agree, and then they challenge the computation. So we say that they actually take it to court. So you have the judges in the court are the miners from the system. And so the solver would come in with a solution, and the challenger disagrees. They say you're wrong, and they play this thing which is called a verification game. So the verification game looks something like this. So you have the solver and the challenger, which are enumerating computation states off-chain. So in other words, whatever your computation that is done that you don't agree with, you should list every step of the computation, and you're both the solver and the verifier are going to agree on the first state because that's given in the task. The task tells you this for the initial state. There's a little bit of wiggle room, the details there as well. But okay, so they agree on the first state, and then they must disagree on the last state because otherwise they wouldn't be there in the first place. Why would they be in the court? And so they said, okay, let's see. What do you think about step n over 2? Do we agree there? And then the challenger says no, and he says, well, how about n over 4? He says, okay, we agree on n over 4. So then, what about 3n over 8? And now, in this particular case, you're now close enough that you can. The judges can actually run this one step on chain. So of course, this requires that everyone runs exactly identical steps. So that's what I mean by that kind of architecture, because you can't, it has to be, there's no consensus on the computation unless everybody does exactly the same thing. So here's, in reality, we're using a WebAssembly-based architecture, but for illustration, I use a Turing machine. So you can see that this is like a state of the Turing machine. I mean, if you're not, so the Turing machine works like this. It says, I'm in a machine. I'm looking at this like tape with symbols. I'm in state Q0. I'm looking at I see a 1. So then the protocol says, then you have the solver is claiming that the program would tell it to move to the left when you right is 0, move to the left, and change the state Q1. In other words, don't worry so much how the Turing machine actually works, because the most important thing is to see that the judges also do the same thing, but they get a different answer. So that's the whole point is that the judge can actually run this stuff, because it's a very simple thing to check, and then there's a mistake when the challenge is justified, so the deposit gets forfeited. So now, still we have, so that's basically how we can agree on the computation. there is still one question left, is that how do you actually ensure that people show up in this code, right? I mean, you can offer rewards for checking computations, but this will incentivize people to participate, but it doesn't necessarily incentivize them to participate correctly. So the opposite thing, you might say, well, then we'll just offer them, we'll only pay them if they find bugs. So this incentivizes the correctness, but it doesn't actually incentivize participation unless, when there are no bugs. So in other words, you can know if there are no bugs, nobody shows up to look, and therefore you end up getting wrong answers. It's not really a stable situation. So why don't we just put in the bugs? Which is exactly what we do in Truebit. So the protocol says it will offer a bug bounty and provide expectation that bugs exist. So this is how it works. The protocol occasionally pays the solver for some really incorrect solutions, and then we use this dispute resolution with the judges as a subroutine to ensure correctness that you can fall back on whenever the forced errors are in effect. So the idea is that the verifiers are always there just to get the forced error, and since the solver, they're always checking because they don't know when the error is going to come, whereas the solver is always behaving correctly because he thinks the verifier is always watching it. So in fact, if we write the whole thing perfectly securely and everyone's rational, we'll never actually even use all of this architecture that we built. So I guess to sort of sum it up, we can do it in a picture. You can visualize Truebit as a panopticon. These are these panopticon these are prisons. One is that panopticon was run in the state in Joliet. Another one was in Cuba. And so the prisoners, whoever would sit around here, and there's like a bright light sitting on top of this watchtower in the middle. So the idea is that even though there's very little security on these cells, because they all behave correctly, because of the bright light, they can't see who the watchman is watching. So because they think that he's watching him, then they out of fear, they actually do what they're supposed to do. So that's sort of the idea. So I'll close with a quote from Michael Foucault. He said, "We can see that anyone may come and exercise in the central tower the functions of the surveillance." So you don't actually have to see who's there, you just have to know that someone is. So, I think I'll turn it over to Dan here. Thanks.
That's really cool. So it's a way basically to handle heavy computations on the blockchain without having the verifier do all the machine itself, the miner itself do all of it. So yeah, very cool idea. So welcome everyone. I guess I wanted to say a few words about our work, and then we'll switch over and have a conversation and take questions from the audience. So think of hard questions you can ask us. We'll be happy to answer. So I guess I wanted to mention first of all, so I'm in the computer science department. We do quite a lot of work on blockchain and cryptocurrency. In fact, I wanted to mention that we've been teaching this class, CS 251, which you are very welcome to take. It's a class on blockchain technologies. I guess we've taught it twice already, and we'll be teaching it again in the fall, in this coming fall. So plan your schedules accordingly, and we hope to see you all there. So research-wise, I guess I wanted to quickly tell you about two projects that we've done recently, and then I guess we'll talk about then we'll see where the conversation goes. I should actually first of all ask how many of you are actually in computer science? Raise your hand if you're in computer science. How many of you are in the business school? The rest, not good. Okay, that's indicative enough for us. All right, so I guess one problem that we were excited about is this question of making cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin usable for businesses. So today, Bitcoin, as you probably know, is made up of blocks, and every block contains a bunch of transactions. Where a transaction basically says, this address pays that address, this number, this amount of Bitcoin. So, and that information is public to the world. So essentially, because these addresses, it's not that difficult to de-anonymize addresses. It's not so hard to link addresses to physical identities. Effectively, if you look on the blockchain, you can see basically who's paying who and how much. In particular, you can imagine if like Stanford decided to pay, my salary, say in Bitcoins, you could actually look on the blockchain, identify which address belongs to me, which address belongs to Stanford, and you can pretty much tell what my salary is, pretty easily. Similarly, if like one company wanted to buy equipment from another company, Ford wants to buy tires from their suppliers. If you look on the blockchain, if you get it in Bitcoin, and you look on the blockchain, you'll see exactly how much they're paying their supplier. So essentially, this means that businesses cannot use Bitcoin, cannot use these cryptocurrencies as is. There's got to be some notion of privacy in the system, otherwise no one can, for business purposes, it cannot be used. So the direction that we wanted to go in is what's called confidential transactions. It's a beautiful idea. It's due to Greg Maxwell, which says that basically who pays who is going to be available in the clear on the blockchain, but how much they paid is hidden. So again, if my salary was paid in Bitcoin, you'll know that Stanford paid my salary, but you will not know what the salary is. Make sense? That's kind of a level of privacy that enables businesses to use these technologies, but at the same time provides some notion of traceability. So if the money is stolen, for example, you can still see where the money went and maybe try to recover it back. So now the question is how to do that. So how do you implement something that allows you to have a transaction where the addresses are known, but the amounts that are being transferred are unknown? So fundamentally, this violates the basic tenet of a blockchain, right? If the amount is unknown, amount that's being transferred is unknown, that prevents you from verifying that the transaction is valid. What does it mean that a transaction is valid? What it means is that the sum of the inputs, the sum of the input amounts coming in, is equal to the sum of the outputs coming out minus the transaction fee. Right? That's what it means for a transaction to be valid. And of course, if nothing has been double spent, and so on. But now if the amounts are hidden, yes, you cannot verify, the world cannot verify anymore that the sum of the inputs is equal to the sum of the outputs. And the question is what to do then. So how do we do this? So the solution is actually a pretty cute crypto idea, which is to say that instead of writing the amount in the clear in every transaction, what we're going to do is we're going to write what's called a commitment to the amount. Yeah, so a commitment basically means I can take the value, the amount that I'm trying to transfer, sort of, not really, but sort of encrypt it and put that on the blockchain. Yeah. And now what I need to be able to do is verify that the sum of the inputs is equal to the sum of the outputs, even though the amounts themselves are only committed to. They're not available in the clear. And the way we do that is using what's called a zero-knowledge proof. Okay, so if I want to spend money, essentially I write these commitments on the blockchain, a commitment to the values, and in addition, I concatenate the zero-knowledge proof that the sum of the inputs is equal to the sum of the outputs. Okay? There's one more fact that we have to argue, which is that none of the amounts are negative. It's not just that the sums are equal, the amounts are not negative. If the amounts were negative, let's see, there's a problem, right? If I could post a negative amount as an output, what that would mean is, for example, I could have 2 Bitcoins come in, the input would be 2, I could have one output be worth 5 and one output be worth negative 3. Right, so everybody agrees the sum of the inputs is equal to the sum of the outputs, right? 2 came in, 5 came out, and negative 3 came out. So the sums are equal, but now the negative 3 I will never spend, and then all of a sudden I have an output that's worth 5 coins. So out of thin air, I created 5 additional coins, and nobody knows that I did that, because everything is just commitments. You don't see that, you don't see the 5, you don't see the 2, you don't see the negative 3. So nobody would know that this happened, and effectively what this does is inflates the number of Bitcoins that are available, or the number of coins that are available in general, and nobody knows that this inflation is taking place. So just a fear that this could take place is enough to kind of destroy confidence in the currency. Does that make sense? So we have to A, prove that sum of inputs is equal to sum of outputs, and C, that none of the amounts are negative. It turns out that the sum is actually fairly easy to do. Proving that none of the amounts are negative is a little tricky, that's relatively hard. So we came up with this mechanism called bulletproofs that allows you to do very, very efficient zero-knowledge proofs that committed value is, in fact, in a given range. Say 0 to 2 to the 54, 2 to the 53. Yeah. So these bulletproofs are like, they're called bulletproofs because they're fast and they're short and all the good stuff. They're about 600 bytes, so we would append like 600 byte proofs to every transaction, and that's about it. So it turns out, they have some other kind of pretty amazing properties in the sense that you can take many bulletproofs and aggregate them all into a single proof. So for example, if you have many outputs to a transaction, you have to do this non-negative proof for every single output. Well, you can take all these proofs and compress them into a single proof that's basically as short as a single proof. Yeah. So so it turns out this actually shrinks the blockchain dramatically compared to what was possible before. But it turns out these bullet proofs are not just for proving that things are positive. You can use them to prove arbitrary statements. Yeah. So I have a commitment to a state of a smart contract. So nobody knows what the state of the smart contract is. Now I operate in the smart contract in a particular way, and I want to provide a zero-knowledge proof that the updated, so I have the original state and the new state. These are all commitments. So nobody knows what the states of the smart contracts are. But I can give a zero-knowledge proof that's saying that the evolution of the smart contract was done according to the rules of the contract. Nobody knows the state. Yes, nobody knows the state, but the contract evolved according to the rules of that are specified in the smart contract code. Yeah, so this is one of the problems with using smart contracts, in that their state currently is just public for the whole world to see. So if you and I wanted to play poker, we wanted to have like a smart contract for playing poker, we immediately run into a problem, right? Because my deck would have to be kind of available on the blockchain. Everyone can see what my deck is. So playing poker right now is problematic and requires these cryptographic techniques to make it work. Well, with these bullet proofs, I can prove to you that every step of my poker game was actually done correctly, and I can do that in zero knowledge with very, very, very short proofs. Does that make sense? So that's what bullet proofs do. So that's one quick description of one project that seems useful. So I don't know if anybody has a blockchain project that needs zero-knowledge proofs. Yes, of course, this is then the code is available. It's all open. Everything that all the research we do is generally public domain, and anyone is allowed to use it. So that's the beauty of being a university, that we work in the open.
How do you keep it so if it's all kind of, so let's say the state, if it's all zero knowledge and you know that the sums of everything go, let's say it's still a problem for a business, right? If you claim that you sent me 3 Bitcoins, but you only sent me 2, and no one else can see it, how do you?
No, so what I do is, so these commitments are on the blockchain. Now when I send you a particular amount, sending you an amount means that on the blockchain I write commitments, but then off the blockchain I send you a way to open the commitment. So you can open the commitment and confirm that this is in fact a commitment to 2 Bitcoin.
But if you didn't do what you said you were going to do, like there's no way to. I mean, it would be.
Well, then I don't send you the tires, right? So if you don't give me the Bitcoins, I don't send you the product.
It seems fair. I guess Bitcoin works like that.
Exactly. Right, exactly. So yeah, so generally when I give, right, so then, by the way, the opening that I give you is then enables you to then further spend the coins that you just got. Yeah, so every step now involves writing the commitment on the blockchain and giving the payee the opening to that commitment.
It's not restricted to range proofs though, right?
Yeah, we can do, so actually bullet proofs are general. We do, range proofs was just the application that we wanted to solve confidential transactions efficiently. But bullet proofs are it's a generic zero-knowledge mechanism.
Can you say a little bit why it's more difficult to deal with the positive versus negative numbers?
Than the sums?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Oh man, now we have to do the math. Okay, let me try to do it without math. All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll try to do it without math. Okay. So basically, when I commit to a value m, what I'm actually writing on the blockchain. Oh, you want to? Yeah, you can read
There you go, just in case you need to resort to.
It's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, we can't have a talk with me without writing some equation of the work. So when you commit to the value of a particular amount m, say what happens is, in some sense, you kind of writing m in the exponent of some exponentiation. Okay. The nice thing about exponentiation is that it's linear in the sense that if I have g to the m and I have g to the m, I have g to the m1 and I have g to the m2. If I multiply the two together, I get g to the m1 plus m2 in the exponent. So these commitments we call them additively homomorphic, in the sense that given the commitment to m1 and the commitment to m2, I can build the commitment to m1 plus m2. Yeah. And so what I do is I build the sum of the commitment to the sum of all the inputs, I build a commitment to the sum of all the outputs, and then there's a simple zero-knowledge proof to say that those two commitments are actually equal. And that's very simple. That's why summation is so simple. The problem with ranges is all these numbers are just algebraic numbers. Yeah, they're just elements in a finite field. And so there's no notion of size in a finite field. And so to do a range proof, you sort of have to break them up into bits and prove that all the bits are 0, 1, and that's where things are complicated. Yeah, so anyhow, that's short answer without getting into too much now. Hope that's good. Sort of. Yeah, I'll tell you. Let's see. So should I? Let me quickly tell you one more thing that we did. I'll tell you about provisions, which is kind of a fun project too. So this is about exchanges going out of business. Yeah. So exchanges, as you know, basically you give them all your currency and they hold it for you, and then when you want to get the currency back, they give it back. That's what exchanges do. Well, the problem is some exchanges you give them your currency and then they lose it. Right, so the classic example is, let's say it all together. Mongox, right, so Mongox, what was it? People lost like $250 million. It's like an insane amount of money. Now it's probably worth more. Yeah, it's an insane amount of money that was lost as a result. And the problem was there was literally a bug, right? So people gave them the money and someone was able to take the money. People gave them the coins and someone was able to take the coins away from the exchange. So what we'd like to do, so how do banks deal with this in the real world? Well, what do banks do? Like, how do you deal with solvency for banks? Well, once a year, the bank brings in an auditor, right? The auditor looks at all the books and makes sure that the assets that the bank owns is greater than the obligations. The obligations meaning to its customers, right? So it can always pay, or at least a fraction of it, a fixed fraction of its obligations to its customers. I guess there's a reserve amount. We only have to have like 10% of what we owe. Okay, so the question is how to do that. Can we do that more efficiently in the world of cryptocurrencies? And the answer is yes, right? So an exchange basically holds a bunch of Bitcoin from its customers, and it has a bunch of assets that it owns itself. What we'd like to prove is that the amount of assets, the crypto assets that the exchange holds, is bigger than or equal to the obligations to its customers. Okay? Well, that sounds like another one of those. Oh, and by the way, we have to do that in a way that doesn't reveal the exchange's inner workings, right? You don't want to reveal to the world how many customers the exchange has, how much asset it has. Those are kind of confidential business. That's confidential business data. Well, so that sounds like another wonderful application for zero knowledge, right? So what we have is essentially a zero knowledge proof of solvency. And the beauty of a cryptocurrency is you can run this proof of solvency. It's just an automated proof. You can run it every day. Right? So every day what you do is you run this proof of solvency, you publish it, it's a couple of megabytes. It's not small, it's a couple of megabytes, but that's fine. Every customer downloads this proof of solvency, verifies that their account is included in the obligations, and then everyone can look at the blockchain and at the proof of solvency and verify that, in fact, if the proof is correct, that means that the assets are greater than the obligations without learning what the assets of the exchange are. That's the amazing thing. Yeah, that's the zero knowledge property. So that's kind of neat. So literally, if Mt. Gox had implemented this provisions system, the fact that they lost all their assets would have been detected like 8 months before the exchange actually declared bankruptcy. Yeah, so this is actually quite an effective tool. Oddly, I have to say, these exchanges, so there are many exchanges out there, and in fact, there are many that have gone bankrupt, unfortunately. But they don't so much compete on security, oddly. Yeah, they mostly compete on features, customer service, things like that. So I have to tell you, we've had a hard time getting an exchange to actually adopt provisions, even though it's something that they can deploy, that we have kind of answers to all their questions. It's something that you can deploy, but it has not been easy to find the first exchange to actually do it. My guess is once somebody steps up and does it, everybody's going to have, right, it's such a competitive differentiator that everybody's going to have to do it. So if you guys have connections in any of the exchanges, please help us. Please help convince them that this is a useful thing to deploy. Yeah.
I mean, just to follow up on that, I just don't understand what's the rationale that they did it to non-implementing something like this. What is their rationale?
Oh, the rationale is very simple. It's the same rationale as many other companies give for not implementing features, which is it going to get us more customers? Or put it more precisely, there's 1,000 features they want to implement. They only have a limited number of programmers. And the question is, they sort them by which feature will get the most customers.
Okay. It's just basically they decided that it's a business problem for them. That's not a high priority.
That is not, so it's not high priority because it's not on the customer's mind.
Sure.
If the customers knew that you can have a proof of solvency every 24
Yeah, so I
hours,
was going to say.
maybe they would have
be. Okay. Yeah.
but that requires intelligence. That requires, sophisticated customers.
Okay.
There's a little bit more to it too, which is that there's two types of exchanges, well-capitalized and well-supported ones, and then fly-by-night ones. The well-capitalized ones, if they take partial losses in their holdings, they can make up for it with their capital in certain ways, that they can hide that kind of seams of what's going on. That's in their interest. The poorly run exchanges don't want to divulge this information at all. So there's incentives on both sides to not make things, which are kind of perverse, but they're there.
Yeah. I see. So some of them would actually want to hide their internal workings. They're not, because they're not always solvents.
Yeah, both types.
That's a good reason not to.
That's right. Well, that's like in secure election systems, there's also there's some resistance to secure election systems. But that's a different story. Yeah.
Probably don't know, it's fairly complicated, but
Sure.
at a high level, would you be able to explain how you can prove something without actually knowing any of the inputs or the parameters?
Oh my God, I see. Right, okay. Now we're really gonna have to get into that. So what happens? Let's see. So you're asking how do we prove certain facts about like the states of a contract without revealing anything about what the state is?
Or do we know? So we know the states.
No. All you have are commitments to certain values, and then what these mechanisms let you do is they let you prove facts about those. So you have commitments to certain values, and you can prove facts about those committed values. Yeah? So you have commitment to X, you can prove that X satisfies a certain property. Yeah? And that proof reveals nothing about X. That's what these mechanisms do. Now, how they work, I have to say that actually there's like a whole lecture. Unfortunately, that takes an hour-long lecture to explain. I can tell you that the one-line description here is a sort of a back-and-forth protocol between the prover and the verifier. And in some sense, the prover commits to something, and then the verifier challenges the prover to show that that commitment is valid. And the prover opens whatever he committed to. And the point is, things are set up in such a way that the opening itself tells you nothing about the actual statement you're trying to prove. I think that's as much as I want to get to in this form. But again, it's a wonderful, wonderful area. This is one of the very super elegant areas of crypto. These zero-knowledge proofs. It's something that we cover in our crypto class. So if you're interested, please take the crypto class. In fact. This quarter I taught our regular crypto class, which is 255, which touches on these issues. And the next quarter, there'll be the advanced crypto class 355, which goes into a lot of depth, a lot of detail about zero-knowledge proofs. So if you're interested, please take 355 and you'll learn probably more than you ever wanted to know about zero-knowledge proofs. And snarks and starks and all that stuff. All that good stuff. Yeah.
I assume you have published papers on this stuff?
Yeah, everything that we do, we're academics. Publish or perish. Everything that we do is published. Otherwise, it didn't happen. Yeah. Like a tree falling in the forest doesn't happen if nobody listens. Same thing with papers. Didn't happen unless it's published. So should we?
Sure. I have a question.
I appreciated the sort of privacy element that you get with these zero-knowledge proofs, and that you know who the parties are, but you don't know sort of the amount of speed transition. If I were one of those parties, I would think the very identity of myself and whoever it is I'm transacting with still provides a huge amount of information that I would not want my competitors to have. To which it's hard for me to see a solution.
There is a solution.
Okay, excellent.
So we can consider it all together. So there's a system called
CoinJoin.
CoinJoin is one solution for sure. Let's describe CoinJoin in just a minute. I was thinking more of Zcash.
I was actually, Zcash. Leading into that, I had a question. Is Truebit plus bulletproofs equal to Zcash? Because I think this actually gets to the heart of his question, which is to say, let me. First, Zcash is a mixer which does hide your your identity. But I think the question is, it's a separate blockchain. They have their own way of handling the transactions in Zcash. But the idea that I'm suggesting to Dan right now is that you would take, so Truebit can compute the bulletproofs, right? So you would imagine that whatever information you wanted to conceal from this financial transaction would come out on the other side with just a proof of that you had paid off the right amounts. But I think in Ethereum, if you did it with ETH, I see this problem that not only would you see which addresses were going in, but you would see how much money was going in and how much was coming out. But,
you need Truebit by itself.
No, I'm saying like Truebit, if you wanted to turn Ethereum into add Zcash functionality in Truebit. If I want to use Zcash functionality in Ethereum and I have my tools are Truebit and bulletproofs, can I do it? So that's the question, and I guess I'm not sure about it.
That would actually take some work.
Yeah, it takes some work, but.
Well, you couldn't implement it.
Well, I mean, it can because you always have this trace of you can follow the ETH around, right? So that takes away some of the properties, but maybe you could create a token or something.
So there is a way to add privacy to Zcash level of privacy to Ethereum, but that actually it's not simple. That requires implementing big chunks of Zcash in Ethereum.
In other words, you have to change the underlying.
Well, no, you could write a smart contract that implements the Zcash protocol.
Okay. All right. Well, okay then.
So you could do it, but this is a significant undertaking.
But you would have to implement Zcash has this snark thing. You have to have this trusted setup and everything. Can you get around that? Because obviously you did see Zcash exactly.
That's the point of bulletproofs. Bulletproofs is a way to do short proofs without trusted setup. That is the whole point of
yeah. No, that's. So I guess that is so you wouldn't literally implement Zcash as all of this, and it would be some variant thereof which would.
Well, now it's your choice if you wanted trusted setup or.
I don't want to know why would you want that.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And bulletproofs is one. Bulletproofs is one way to go. Starks are another way to go. I mean, I have to say the zero knowledge the world of zero knowledge. Because of cryptocurrencies is advancing rapidly these days. It's a very active, this question of proof systems, a very, very active area of research. There's 6 lines of research for building proof systems, zero knowledge proof systems. Snarks, Starks, bulletproofs, those are just 3, there are others. And so it's a very active area, lots going on. But we probably shouldn't get too deep into the weeds there.
All right, next question.
But anyhow, the short answer is you could actually have a cryptocurrency that provides complete anonymity. So you would not know who's paying who. So we were just focusing on hiding amounts, but there are ways to hide completely who's paying who. Yeah. Of course, in that system, if somebody steals your money, you have no idea where the money's going. Yeah, it's very kind of important to understand. But again, this is beautiful technology that's going into that.
You can still have solvency proof in Zcash. Does that make any sense?
You can still have a solvency proof in Zcash.
Like the one you were talking about on the exchange.
I imagine you can, but that will take more work. Yes, absolutely. That's a great research question. If anybody wants to work on that, that would be quite nice. Yeah.
Is it possible to be anonymous and then say I pay you $1 and I don't want anyone to know our identities, but I want that dollar to be traced. So if you take that dollar and you pay Dan, I want to be able to follow that $1 around. Is that possible with cryptocurrency?
That happens on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But without this notion of I don't want my I want to follow the dollar. I don't know in Bitcoin if I send you 1 Bitcoin, if that gets stolen, who. Let me try to explain this better. The wallet IDs are easy to generate. You guys are saying they're easy to reverse and
to map to physical
people. Is there a way to?
If you mine it, then it's harder.
You can create new. So I guess let me think of that question.
Yeah.
Do you know if Zcash will move to bulletproof at some point, or they will stay with snarks?
Oh my God, that's to be determined, right? You know, they seem happy with the again, the main difference is the trusted setup. I have to say, for the Zcash circuit, bulletproofs are a little bit longer than ZK snarks. So if they're happy with the trusted setup, then ZK snarks is a perfectly fine way to go. So bulletproofs are, like I said, we designed them specifically for confidential transactions. They do more, but they're not. But you know, they're short. You know, they're logarithmic in the side of the statement. But ZK snarks are actually even shorter if you're okay with trusted setup.
Yeah, which is a big flow potentially. So.
Which is a big flow. Wow. Well, I don't know if you saw the video of what Zcash did to do the trusted setup. That was a very complicated ceremonies with computers blowing up. And so you have multiple computers generating the trusted setup. By the way, the reason it's so complicated is because this trusted setup, if somehow it's compromised, then again, whoever has compromised the setup can inflate the currency, right? They can generate coins out of thin air without anyone knowing. So they'll inflate the currency and it'll never be discovered, which is what scares people. So to prevent that, what they did is they ran their trusted setup on multiple machines together, so that no single machine can actually compromise the entire computation. The parameters came out, and then they basically destroyed the machines that very, very violently. Destroyed the machines that did the computation. Yeah. So if you're okay, and that's all documented on video and so on. So if you're okay with that system, you know, ZK snarks are perfectly good.
And if it was bull on bulletproof, will there be this money crate of thin air potentially? No, it wouldn't exist.
There's no trusted setup. No, we don't need trusted setup. Yeah. Yeah. And the penalty is that the proofs are a little bit longer. Yeah. That's mainly it.
On the topic of auditing, I guess with the provisions that you mentioned, it seemed to be a way for the currents or an exchange to voluntarily audit themselves without giving out the permission of their holdings. Is there a way in your mind that exists to audit exchanges maybe against their wills, which is Bitfinex or so it's like Tether that capitalizing the price space?
Oh yeah, I see. That's a great question.
Someone else is Tether over here.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's not possible because you don't. If you just look at the blockchain, you don't know where their assets are located.
They're using a good map addresses to map addresses.
But then you don't know their obligations. Like remember, I said one of the important steps in verifying solvency is the customers log in and verify that their accounts are included in the proof of solvency.
So one solution would be to use it like a decentralized exchange where everything is done on chain. Of course, I don't think we've solved the problem. That's fine if you want to trade ERC20 tokens, or even, there's a project working to do atomic swap between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So you can, those things, that's, I know Ethan Elman was over with our house day going, very interesting project, but if you want to go between Bitcoin and US dollar, that's a completely different thing, I think, because you don't really...
No blockchain for the US dollar.
No blockchain for the US dollar. That is well, you got, so there are some people that claim that there are, I guess Tether is the closest thing, but then you have some DAI tokens as well that are sort of looking like that, but it's really, at the end of the day, like, we don't have them. You need some sort of oracle to tell you even what the exchange rate should be. So I think I've always said this: we should learn how to walk before we run. If you can't figure out what the exchange rate is, then you would have a hard time building an exchange for it or a stable coin for it.
So I have a couple of questions I wanted to run through just to make sure we cover. While we have you here, can you say, in your opinion, what's the killer app for all this technology that's being developed?
Oh, blockchain. That's a good one.
Can you think of the killer app that if my grandparents ask me, what the heck is this all for? What's a killer app that I could tell them? And by the way, that's a question for all of you. I have my answer, but I'm really curious to hear what other people's answer are.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably the most interesting applications are the ones we haven't thought of yet. And I know.
Good answer for my
I took it from, actually, that's what Vitalik Buterin told me back in 2015 before Ethereum launched, and I said, I kind of think he was right, because if you had said, is it a bunch of ICOs, it wouldn't, it would not have, even though that was the application that was first put as yes, you can create your own token, everybody knew you could do it, but anyway, I think for me, like a Bitcoin is an instance of an autonomous machine. Ethereum is an instance of an autonomous machine. A little more interesting, has some compute power. I think if you throw compute power and you throw storage into an autonomous system, so imagine AIs that actually live on the blockchain and they have these computational resources. Like Trent McConaughey gave me an example of an art DAO that would create art and sell the art and then use like the revenue for that art to optimize its own circuits, like the genetics sort of algorithm. And now you have no idea what you're going to end up with. It might end up being a machine that has nothing to do with art, but the fact is that machines will be able to incentivize people to do stuff. So it becomes, I think this is where it gets very interesting, in terms of the intersection of governance, law, and computer science. And when we can do machine learning on the blockchain, that's when I think
that's what Truebit is going to enable.
It's one piece of the puzzle, but I think we also need a way to get the data into the chain. So that's another. If you have those two things, then there may be some certain art DAOs. You could build some simple examples of machine learning, the limited data that you could feed into the blockchain. It would be interesting. Like imagine you have a machine that says $300 reward for digging a hole here. You took a picture of it and showed you dug the hole, and then you get a reward for it. I think that would be like some sort of machine learning. So, but then, maybe it's incentivizing you to do things that are good. Sometimes it's just to do things that you don't understand. But if there's a reward, then it will be done. So so it's the curiosity, I think, that drives me forward. Because that is actually why I left the university. Because I was like, I just wanted to see this thing built, and this is exactly why. So I don't know the answer to that question.
I see. And then I guess if we look to the future, you see. So I guess kind of the question that's on a lot of people's minds is, as cryptocurrencies continue to grow, effectively they're going to sort of replace fiat currencies over time. But replacing fiat currencies, for a while, of course, they'll live together, but at some point, one will dominate the other. If cryptocurrencies come to dominate fiat currencies, the feds around the world are not going to be happy with the loss of control. So the question is, can governments actually shut down these cryptocurrencies if they wanted to?
That is a good question. Yeah. And do they want to is another question.
That's right. Well, some governments are already trying.
I guess there are really two reasons you would, it's difficult. I guess the blockchain has. What do you think?
Well, I said that's it right over.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that a lot of our faith. The reason the values are what they are is because we decided to give these things value. So if some entity out there wanted to harm the development of cryptocurrencies, you might imagine they would start a propaganda effort to say that these things are really not worth what people think they are. Maybe they'll, create a fake news campaign about security around these systems, and that could undermine the public's faith. And if you undermine the public's faith, that could really harm the currency. So that is probably one way that if a large organization wanted to harm this development, they could take. The other way, of course, is to try and outlaw it. Right, to shut it down by legal means. And that actually has turned out to work pretty badly. So China tried to do this, is trying to do this for exchanges, and all that ended up happening is they drove all the talent out of China. So that's really called shooting yourself in the foot. Right, this new technology is being developed. They had a lot of talent that was building the tools to continue to develop technology. Now they basically forced them all to migrate elsewhere. So that's probably. Seems like a mistake, and they're probably going to reverse course at some point. Although we don't know yet. So I'm hoping that other governments around the world are going to be more enlightened, and they're going to let this flourish and develop, and actually help it rather than fight it. That will be the hope.
Go ahead.
Some people have also mentioned, like recently, some people have talked about like central banks starting to use like cryptocurrency as a settlement mechanism between each other. I'm not sure if either of you had any perspective on that, like how it could actually start to be used in the existing like central bank structure.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so this would be like a private blockchain that. So anytime you have, anytime you have a need for a consensus system, then a blockchain is kind of a way to go, right? And in this case, it would be a private blockchain, so it wouldn't be accessible to the public, and only certain authorities could write to it. You probably don't need the complexity of the proof of work or proof of stake mechanisms. There's probably other consensus mechanisms that would work well in those kind of settings. But definitely, it's an excellent development.
I don't know, haven't those already been around for many, many years? I mean, is there really anything new in the blockchain? If you're not doing proof of work, is it a blockchain? I guess you mean
like it's a distributed.
Well, like, I mean, banks already. What were they doing 20 years ago? I mean, you had some people a consortium that sort of cleared these transactions, and that
potentially you can do it clear and faster. It takes a long time to clear it down.
But I think that's mostly due to like paperwork and stuff. Or that's really idea to do with this paperwork, perhaps. Could be. Yeah.
If you're interested in post-trade settlement services on the blockchain, check out Digital Assets White Paper. Digital Assets White Paper has a lot of interesting information on this. Question I have for you, I was wondering what your answer to the killer application is.
I actually like this answer that we don't know, the killer app hasn't been invented yet, but I think we're already seeing some pretty interesting killer apps in the sense that sending cryptocurrencies across borders is very easy, right? All I have to do is just send you this short key and boom, the funds are there. So it's kind of a frictionless way to send money long ways. An example that I really like is this example where to imagine a parent in Germany wants to hire a tutor for their daughter or son, whatever, and the tutor happens to be they look around and they find a tutor in Russia. Yeah. So a parent in Germany wants to hire a tutor who happens to live in Russia. So they can do this over Skype, which is fine. But now, how do they pay the tutor? So for every lesson, you have to pay the tutor whatever, $20, right? But how do you send $20 from Germany to Russia? There's no system for doing that today. Whereas cryptocurrencies make it trivial. Right? So just as an example of where they reduce a lot of friction. But generally, I have to say that decentralized computer and the theory of this building is fascinating. I mean, I think the opportunities are endless, and applications come up that we couldn't have dreamt of before. I mean, CryptoKitties comes out, and it's a brilliant game. It's like I'm really at awe at what they built. People think that they put this together quickly, but they've been working on this stuff for 3-4 years. So this is a major effort that went into CryptoKitties. It's a fantastic game. Runs on the Ethereum network. Taught us a few things about the Ethereum network, of course. It's an application that we couldn't have imagined when things were built.
I think there's a lot of potential for entertainment sort of applications. For example, imagine you're playing a game and you don't want people to cheat, so you would have the physics of the characters of the game enforced on chain. So that would be one application that could be done with Truebit. In terms of the CryptoKitties, I always wanted to say, instead of just putting pictures of cats, I'd like to actually see real cats. That would be the ultimate goal, I think.
Is that the killer app?
Let them breed and let them be on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So this might be an economics question, but assuming a hypothetical situation where the entire world migrates from fiat currencies onto either one cryptocurrency or other cryptocurrency, how would that impact the concepts of inflation, interest rates, and things like that? Because people keep talking about how fiat currencies have led to a lot of inflation because they keep printing money every time they're economic. So how would that affect, how would that work in a world where everything is run by cryptocurrency?
I guess that really depends on your token model. So yeah, that's something we're sort of. Bitcoin has one solution, Ethereum has another solution. So Bitcoin they
Bitcoin
have,
has inflation built in.
it has inflation built in, but it's also, they have a set number of total coins that would ever be generated. Ethereum says 5 ETH generated every block, so that's just until the miners decide to change it.
I think that the question is, the point is the Fed loses control over inflation, well, not interest rates, but over printing money, right? Over that kind of monetary policy.
No, but also just because there's a fixed number of Bitcoin doesn't mean that it's going to keep going up and down. Just because something is limited doesn't mean it's going to go up. Because people might just shift out of it and find the best value. So.
What they lose is the ability to print money. That's the difference, right? I mean, inflation could still be interest rates and all that can still be controlled, but they do lose some of those.
As long as you can run an ICO, you're never going to run out of money. So maybe it's not a problem.
I think the question gets to who's controlling the monetary policy, and we're already seeing that experiment in Europe, the European Union. There were countries that signed up for the euro, and a bunch of people said this was a stupid idea, well, I started it, and now, yeah, it is. So, yeah, I think it is an economics question, but what the answer is.
It's not quite the right analogy, because when you have fiat currency that's not infinitely divisible, then inflation is a more relevant discussion. When you have an infinitely divisible currency, then the thing that you're using to buy real world assets, just buy with how much it costs it that day. Why does it matter what, like if it's a Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin or transaction fee? Yeah, well, that actually, the only thing that actually matters in that point is the transaction fee. Right? And so transaction fees become more painful and driving the economy when you deflate. So does deflation. Also causes driving the economy.
Maybe it's just like another way of valuing the community as well, because if you think, like the value of Bitcoin comes from its community and the fact that many people have used it and contributed to it. I mean, it's sort of like, the token is just some sort of, I guess, manifestation of just like the fiat is, I guess, a manifestation of the economy of a country, so it's just maybe different.
I think it's more interesting, along the same discussion, maybe if you guys want to discuss what governments need in terms of issuing fiat as a rapid asset, as a digital asset. Which it already is, but it's just not tracked. I mean, money is virtual, right? It's just not
well, they can do that tomorrow. There are already efforts to do this
in China and Russia. Right. So what is the way
What
are the government, what tools do these governments still need?
I think they can do that tomorrow if they wanted to. I mean, they can do that tomorrow if they wanted to. It's not, we know how to do it. The technology is there.
But it's inefficient with the grant conducting.
No, it's again one of these, we talk about priorities. It's again one of these priorities. It's not clear that this is, the Fed's highest priority.
Why does it clear that it benefits the country, right? I mean, I think that may be the bigger, like, why would they do it? Like, they have so much control from having, I mean, you give up some control, I guess, when you
well, no, it's not that difficult to build a cryptocurrency that in it has the ability for one entity to print money.
Okay, fine, yeah, but the thing is that once you make it digital, like you sort of create possible, like.
I'll give you another example of an interesting problem that we've been thinking about, which is this question of U.S. foreign aid. Yeah, so the U.S. gives foreign aid to lots of countries, and sometimes that foreign aid ends up in the hands of people that the U.S. did not want it ended. Yeah, and so there's actually there's some concern about this. That foreign aid is not going to where it's supposed to go. So it's kind of interesting. Could you design a cryptocurrency that is like Zcash, that it's private, so no one can track where money is going? However, if you are the one who contributed funds to a particular cause, those funds have like a green dot on or blue dot on them, and as the funds are moving around in the system, you can track the blue dot, but nobody else can. Yeah, so it's kind of like a partially anonymous cryptocurrency. So even this we know how to build. Yeah, there's crypto mechanisms that will let you do this ability that, if France contributes foreign aid, they can track where their funds are going, If the US contributes foreign aid, it can track where its funds are going. We know how to do this. I should say, by the way, there's limits to this technology because of coin join, right? At the end, what can happen is, the blue dot money goes to the hands of a certain individual, and he says, he goes to his friend and says, I'll buy tomatoes with the blue dot money if you buy these chemicals for me, and then we switch. Right, so now it looks like this completely innocent civilian bought chemicals, but that's not really he's not really the person that's valued in terms of the funds. So barter effectively undoes this ability to trace. But at least if we ignore the issue of barter, you can still have the ability to trace funds. But you're the only one who has that ability. Yeah. So even those kind of mechanisms you know how to build. So there's really, you can kind of almost write out any set of requirements for a currency, and we know how to cryptographically design it, which is really fascinating, right? So each one of those, by the way, is a wonderful research project, right? So a research project. Write down properties you want, and let's see how to design a currency that does that. We would usually stop at writing a paper, but some would go to the next step and actually deploy it. Yeah, lots of questions. Yeah.
Two questions. So first, there are most of the projects are now creating building the fiat currency, but is there anyone trying? What would be a good system that is designed for credits, which is the actual saying that flow is available credits actual fiat currency? What would be a good system?
You mean a credit system?
Yeah.
Why can't we do credits already with the existing currencies? I can borrow, right? I can borrow coins and use them for whatever, and then promise to repay them later. There's markets today.
Is there a current system that has?
Yeah, I think the current system
You're going to do better if you have a smart contract that makes you take some action and that's enforceable. Like certain time or whatever.
Yeah, I think we actually already know this.
Okay, so it's mostly interacting with the real world and checking the credibility of
That's right.
Making sure the
collateral
is okay. That's hard part.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
I actually have a question about sort of trading data. So you get into a situation where if I have a piece of machine, I would like to trade this machine's data with another machine's data. But at the same time, I don't want this machine, or I don't want other people to know that it's this machine that's trading. But at the same time, the guy who's trading or buying the data for this machine needs to know that it is an authentic data source. For example, there's some serial number from the manufacturer who said that I produce 1,000 machines, and if the data did not come from one of these serial number, it's a fake, or multiple pieces of data come from the same serial, it's fake. But at the same time, I don't want people to know that it's me, because then they might know who I am, know my business secrets. So how do you do that kind of transaction when someone can know it's coming from the right machine, but not
Interestingly,
know?
I have to say that problem now, I know at least 3 different independent areas where this problem is coming up. This is actually a very, very common problem these days. And so, well, that's actually so the typical solution people try to build is they build a fraud detection engine on the server side. So they collect all the data and they try to detect duplicates, they try to detect data that's out of bounds, and that's why therefore it's fake. So that's one solution. That's not a crypto solution. The more technical solution, which actually also has a lot of problems, is actually to rely on hardware at the machine collecting data. So you can imagine trusted hardware in the machine that's collecting the data that certifies every piece of data that comes out of that machine. Yeah? And then, so the trusted hardware basically has a secret signing key in it. The public key is public, it's certified. And then every piece of data that comes out of the machine is signed. Why do you need trusted hardware? The reason you need trusted hardware is to make sure that A, nobody can get the secret signing key out of the hardware, and B, any piece of data that's measured by the machine is actually going through the trusted hardware. So the trusted hardware is kind of connected to the guts of the machine and actually seeing real data. Yeah. So now we've transformed the problem from a crypto problem to the problem of building building secure hardware. Yeah, and that by itself is also a very difficult problem. Like this is related to digital rights management, copy protection, those kind of problems. So there are already attempts at doing this, like Intel SGX, in some sense is an attempt at doing this. But this is not a perfect solution either. But those are kind of the two categories of solutions, right? Fraud detection on the server side, or hardware at the collection end. And I wish we had like an even better solution, but that's where we are today. Yeah, so it's a very good question.
So I'm gonna just briefly insert myself here because we're coming short of time, and I think we would be remiss. So one of the things that Jason mentioned specifically was atomic swaps. For those of you that don't know, atomic swaps is the potential to, basically take a currency that you have on one blockchain and then transfer it over onto another chain. Essentially the idea. And Truebit, Jason's done some work a little bit in this area with something called the Doge Ethereum bridge involving Ethereum and Dogecoin. And I wanted to make sure this is something that he's done that's quite interesting, and I want to make sure that I'd like, if you don't mind, Jason, just taking 5 minutes or so and just describing that for us here and sharing a little bit about that. So just briefly, thank you.
Sure, yeah. So Doge Ethereum is a very interesting application of Truebit. In fact, it's the reason we made Truebit in the first place. So this was the problem, I guess, that especially my co-author, Christian Wright-Gessner, was I think, particularly inspired. But the idea of Doge is not just to do an atomic swap, but to somehow pull the token off of Dogecoin and put it onto Ethereum in a way that you could use it in smart contracts, and then whenever you're sort of done with it, you burn this tokenized version of it over here and then unlock your Doge back and get it back on the other side of the chain. So it's not like I'm just trading Doge for Ether. I actually want to have a token on here that sort of represents it in some way. So yeah, we were doing that, and interesting, the Doge Ethereum is just like this most fascinating story in cryptocurrency. I don't know we have time to go into all the history, but there was a bounty that went out in the beginning of 2016 to build this cryptocurrency. It was as high as like 6,500 ETH. Right now it's currently worth around 1.5 million. I mean, we received part of the bounty for completing part of the bridge so far. And originally I said, we thought we would have to make a hard fork on Dogecoin in order to implement this bridge. So in other words, we had to get all the miners to install the software. I said, how are we going to do it? Let's make a massive, public art project, and we'll spend all the money funds on a public art display. And so we're doing that. It's happening. You can please visit New York City, and at the end of the summer, you should be able to see the world's physical manifestation of the Doge Ethereum bridge, which is connected to the blockchain, and world's largest wine bottle made out of aluminum, yada yada yada, with projects. So there's kind of been a community that's sprung up around that. But in the end, we realized it turned out we didn't actually need to make a hard fork, because we figured out another way to do this with using just crypto-economic principles. That we can just create incentives in Ethereum that make it so that you can users have an incentive to keep the Doge locked until we've done what we call the WOW token on the Ethereum side, put it back. So this is actually quite interesting. So basically there are two things you have to do. One is to move your Doge from Dogecoin onto Ethereum. The other is to move, in other words, lock up the Doge and generate a WOW. And now you have to be able to burn the WOW and unlock the Doge. So those are the two basic functionalities of the bridge. And
to move back.
Right. So in one place, in one direction, it's a lock and mint, and the other way it's a burn and unlock. I guess say it like that. So that's sort of the dream, I guess. So we've when we presented to the judges a few weeks ago, was sort of old-fashioned two-way peg. Basically, you do exactly what you would think to do. You have a relay that sends over each block of the Doge is broadcast to Ethereum with a proof of work, and the relay sort of maintains all of the blocks that have been sent in. So you have the longest chain remains sort of valid, and so that Ethereum knows what things have happened on Doge, and you have, the idea is you have like some sort of, you send your Doge to a special address, and that would be, to lock it up, and that would be registered on this chain, and that would trigger a minting of this token. So in other words, that's sort of, but of course, what does Truebit have to do with this? The only reason you need Truebit is because Ethereum can't check the Dogecoin proof of work. It's too expensive, correct. So you have to play this sort of verification game like I described. We actually handcrafted one especially for the Doge Ethereum bridge, although we also have one that you can also go on the website and take an arbitrary WebAssembly code and generate the game for that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I can answer questions, or I can tell you what the V2 looks like, which is actually much simpler and kind of interesting. But
go ahead.
So in a few words, so the idea was, I was saying, instead of doing this complicated relay, which is kind of like a bit of a hairy construct, and it's an engineering feat to actually get this to work. I mean, there have been a few other projects, the Peace Relay, BTC Relay. So I said, okay, let's just take the Dogecoin C++ miner and throw that into Truebit. So we'll just compile it into Truebit and simulate it onto the blockchain. So now all you have to do is ask, tell me about block 800 from Doge Ethereum. And you never actually have to relay anything. It's more efficient. Only in case of if there would be a dispute about such a content, then you would go through some sort of verification game. But basically, just the idea that the mining software itself is something that can be run inside of Truebit, that you can actually do this construction. I mean, there's, of course, details to be worked out there, and then on the other side, instead of using a federated peg, the basic idea, I guess the way that like RSK did when they built the peg between rootstock and Bitcoin is you have you choose 5 people that are for sure trusted, and they'll just take care of all the changes to it. I said, let's see what we can do with crypto economics. So basically, the idea would be so this is again what I just explained with the miner was a way to go from Doge to ETH, right? Because you can witness the miner allows you to witness what's happening on Dogecoin inside of Ethereum. Now to go back, what you would do is you would have a bridge operator. So imagine someone on Ethereum puts up a stake, and this is a big idea to start drawing a picture of all, but so you put up a stake, say I'm honoring a bridge. So one of the nice things about Doge and Ethereum is that all the addresses, if you own if you control the private key for this address in Dogecoin, you control the same address in Ethereum. So that kind of is convenient and simplifies things for us. So now I see that this ETH has been locked into this as a collateral into this smart contract here to send the Doge into the corresponding address on the Doge side. And now the principle is that this now having this collateral allows you to spit out you show that money has been sent to this coin. It gives you the WOW tokens over here, and now this basically, with the purpose of putting money into this contract would be like a collateral, so that if this person walks away with your Doge, well then you can collect his ETH. So it's like a collateral like that. So of course the challenges are a few. No one wants to put in money into a deposit for endless, so you have to give them a way to get it back out at some point. And another one is what happens if the exchange rate changes and the collateral changes. And then you also want to worry about a stable token supply. So these are details of the protocol that you can think about, but I think one can wind one's way through these constructions. Yeah, so please. Good question?
Yeah, we just got time for one more question.
Okay,
I want to be respectful of our guest time, so.
Please.
Yeah, how far are you from actually productionizing Truebit? Say I'm a developer and I want to use a computation. What is the timeline?
So we already have an implementation of the Truebit. You can run verification candidates on Kovan or Raspberry testnets. It's not super user friendly, so we want to sort of the next step would be to make it a little bit better documentation and more easy to use, because you have to basically you have to install Inscription and stuff on your machine, compile it from source and stuff. So yeah, there is that, and we have a sort of we're still sort of putting together the incentive layer, but I guess it's really just a matter of going from this proof of concept to production. So it's an open source project. All the code is up on our website, and we would be very happy for anyone who tells us what features they would like to see or want to contribute. We have people who do actually contribute to our code outside of the core team, and there's I guess the more people that come on, the sooner we can get it right. There's a lot of different variations that people need for different applications that are sort of like, so yeah.
You already have requests from people?
Yeah, we are. We're looking. So we had like, for example, the live peer team came to visit us a few weeks ago, which is a decentralized live streaming video platform, and we managed to get their FF probe function compiled as a Truebit program, which is basically a function which takes in like a streaming video and outputs some metadata about it. So we can actually handle actual, we can compile, and so hopefully the hope is that by May we could have a live demo of such a thing with the EdCon meeting. So yep. So it is coming along.
Hey, please join me in giving a round of applause to our guests here. So just in closing, I just wanted to kind of close with just in the course of our conversation here with Dan and Jason, I mean, we touched a lot of different subjects, from both pretty technical ones to, questions of politics and philosophy. And again, this... and economics, yeah. Let's, so I hope that, we at the Stanford Blockchain Collective, we can continue these conversations. So I would encourage all of you to participate. Real quick, I want to do an impromptu survey here. Who would be interested in, basically having some kind of channel in which to ask, questions that you have that you want answered by an expert? Someone like Dan, I don't want to volunteer Dan right here. Someone like Dan to potentially answer questions that you have about this subject. Is there anybody who can
Will we get tokens back?
Potentially. I'm going to do my own ICO and I'll pay you those tokens. Okay, cool, thanks. And also on that, I just want to give you guys, please fill out, if you guys don't mind, filling out a survey. The link is on there. My colleague Richard wrote that. Please fill out that survey so we know how to better structure our events in the future to make these relevant for you guys. And then we've also put our website up there. Please check it out. You can find our Slack link on there. We've got quite a few channels ranging for education for people who just have no idea what any of this stuff is, to discussions of crypto economics. And then we also have an area where we've had some companies come in and they'll post some job stuff there. So if you're a developer or if you're not a developer and you're interested in working in this space, this is potentially a good way to find some opportunities there. Yeah.
The Slack link that you wrote in. There's another way to access.
Okay.
We'll fix it.
We'll fix it. Yeah, we'll fix it. Give it a few minutes. We'll get it fixed. Lastly, to our guests, is there any place that everyone who's attending here can learn more about the projects that you're part of? Like is there a website that they can visit, or is there a good venue for them to get more information?
We're at Truebit.io, where we have links to all the social media. So choose your favorite: Facebook, Reddit, our Medium, or feel free to reach out to me by email if you have questions.
Yeah, and we are at crypto.stanford.edu. All the resources are up there, all the papers. And in fact, there's a whole blockchain section.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much for coming, and
presentation. Actually, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I had a highly interesting conversation.